Oh,
Okay, so we can go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Okay, so you guys should be able to see my screen now. Um, right now, the DAO holds 1.9 billion wLITI tokens, and there's a big difference between wLITI tokens and LITI tokens. So the main differences with wLITI is that they aren't the shares. And LITI Capital has said before that wLITI acts as a stock option for LITI tokens. So what happens is you can take 5,000 wLITI tokens and turn them into one LITI token. And LITI tokens are the ones that are the equity of LITI Capital that represent one share in LITI Capital. And then you get access to voting rights, dividends, and all those things that we need in order to collect on whenever there's dividends and things from LITI Capital. So basically, all that's happening is that instead of having 1.9 billion wLITI tokens, they get turned into 383,000 LITI tokens. Um, so if you guys have any questions, we can kind of explain those. So if anybody has any, I'm trying to pull up Zoom real quick.
Yeah, so hi guys. I'm here over sitting next to Riley. It's Devin. Um, just to kind of recap what Riley was saying, basically, this is kind of standard operating procedure for the DAO. In order for us to be able to receive the distributions that everybody would get paid, wLITI has to be converted to LITI. It just so happens that, we're at the point in the process right now where we're going to go ahead and do that. Um, you know, Ultimately, this is kind of more of a housekeeping kind of proposal and not necessarily something that's like, you know, trying to create a new thing or change a mechanic. This is part of how the DAO is already established to work from the get-go. And so, with the exclusion of some of the new policies that LITI Capital rolled out, this is, exactly what we expected to do from the very beginning in regards to, um, wrapping or unwrapping the wLITI that was deposited into the DAO.
Yeah, so I think I saw somebody in Telegram ask the other day, why would somebody be against this proposal? And there's not necessarily like a downside to it. It's more of we're all agreeing to just go ahead and do this. And then there's not much that changes except the token type.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going from the token that we don't have any of those. Hold on, I think there was a question in chat.
wLITI off market.
Can you explain a little bit more, Michael, about
What you mean there? Um,
because wLITI is still on Uniswap and everything like normal. There's not anything that changes. We're just changing the tokens that the DAO holds, which are wLITI tokens, into LITI tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we have these tokens instead of these ones. And then here's a little diagram explaining what's happening. So we have our treasury for the DAO on Polygon that's holding all of the wLITI tokens. And then the proposal, if passed, is taking those wLITI tokens. And then the only difference is now we hold LITI tokens. And then since LITI isn't mapped to Polygon, it would be on the Ethereum network.
Right.
After changing the W. No, so that's so in the proposal we included a link to one of LITI Capital's recent updates, where they basically explain that they're deciding to focus more on the LITI token and focusing on building that up. And then in their chat before, they've talked about in the long term they're focusing on getting LITI on stock exchanges and those types of things, and they're going to focus less on building out wLITI. And then they announced that on July 17th, but I think they pushed this out a few days, that if you convert to LITI, you can't convert back to wLITI.
Mm-hmm.
For the DAO as a whole, it doesn't matter much to us whether we're holding wLITI or LITI. Like, to go back as a DAO and hold wLITI, the only reason why that would really matter to us is if we were going to go and sell those wLITI tokens on the market on Uniswap. But which anybody can kind of propose things here on Snapshot if we wanted to, but like I don't.
It doesn't seem like it would be beneficial to the DAO in any way to do that.
No, there's no. I don't think we would necessarily go and ever want to convert back to wLITI and then go and sell those tokens.
Right.
So it doesn't make too much of a difference to us whether or not we go back from LITI tokens to wLITI, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and yeah, to that point, you're absolutely correct. As far as not being able to take LITI and turn it back into wLITI, that is no longer a possibility. However, all of the wLITI that's currently laying around, that's in Uniswap, that's that's still wLITI. It can still be purchased and traded and bought and sold and those kinds of things. So let's say hypothetically that we wanted to go and do a purchase of the remaining wLITI in circulation, we could do that.
So then you said, will the dividend come at the end of the year? So Lydia said that they expected that, and I don't think there's really been any more updates since they've said that. So that just depends on them.
Right. The current timeline that we've kind of posted everywhere and kind of kept with, that's still accurate as far as we're aware, and we keep up to date with those kinds of things. The big difference compared to when that original timeline was put out versus now is we can confirm that the case is in the process of finishing up, and has been moving forward, which is super duper awesome. But yeah, as of right now, we're currently operating under the same assumptions that we have up to this point in regards to timeline.
Yeah, and then we also had that announcement pretty recently of someone who is personally involved in all of that, where they announced the status
Mm-hmm.
of the biggest case, and kind of where they were. And I don't have it in front of me, but if you guys want me to, I can forward that announcement to you,
Put it in
or you
general
can,
chat or something.
yeah, we can put it in general chat again, or we can, or if you go into Telegram announcements or Discord announcements and scroll up a little bit, um, you can see where he explains the status of that case.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like real quick, I don't know how familiar everybody on here is with using Polygon Scan and Etherscan, but if you go to Polygon Scan and you look at wLITI DAO's contract, so this is a contract for the token. You get all the information here. There's 1.9 billion WLD tokens and all that. If you go to contract in the top right and click on that, and then you go to where it says tokens or token, and then you can see that the DAO is holding 1.9 billion wLITI tokens. So the only difference, if that proposal was passed, is that these tokens sitting in the DAO's contract, they're going to go to LITI tokens. But if any of you have any questions, like feel free to unmute yourself or post it in the chat on Zoom. Are you looking at Telegram or Discord? Um, or if anything's a little bit fuzzy, or if this kind of makes more sense.
So a point that Semi brings up is, for the record, the quantity amount of tokens will change. So one LITI equals 5,000 wLITI. So the quantity amount of tokens will change within the DAO, but that's purely based off of the conversion rate. It all that's doing is converting it into a larger token, the same way that you might go and start out with 100 pennies, but then end up with a single dollar bill. It's the same kind of principle.
Yeah, because if you take 1.918 billion wLITI tokens, divide that by 5,000, then you get, that's where the 383,000 LITI tokens come from.
Right, and that holds the exact same amount of value.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, hopefully this helps people understand a little bit more about why this proposal is a thing. Whenever it comes to the day-to-day operation of the DAO, proposals like this are going to be regularly presented. This is a kind of a specific case, but as far as custodial work with the treasury, proposals are kind of a key component of that, right? So whenever it comes to fund allocation or major asset decisions, which this is technically a major asset decision, even if it is something that we already intended to do. Those are all things that have to go through proposals in order to be passed. That's part of how a DAO works, right? That's where you guys have the ability to have a say in your investment from a positive, or as far as being for or against something, or committing proposals yourselves. And so the way that works is essentially WLD holders can pass proposals, and that allows us to do things very directly with the treasury. Without those proposals and without a sense of autonomy, this is part of how we stay as decentralized as possible, as far as our operation goes.
Yeah. So I pulled up another little graphic to kind of show that. So there's all of us WLD holders. Proposals are created, which they're just any kind of action that can be executed on by the DAO. And then if it gets passed through voting, then it's executed and there's some kind of action that results from that. And that's just kind of how the governance works for this.
Mhm.
And so, like I said earlier, somebody asked what the downsides of this would be, and I don't really think that there's any downsides for the DAO of doing this. It's more of just an
Formality.
action that needs to be approved by everybody, because we're not just going to go out and do something, if that makes sense. Because then that becomes very centralized, and it's not a DAO at that point. It's people going and doing something on everybody's behalf, which is not what we are.
Right. When you go and you get checked up by the doctor and the doctor says that you need surgery, they're going to ask you, to consent to to doing that surgery because it's a very important thing, even if it might be a minor surgery, right? They're still going to ask, hey, you know, just so you know, this is what we would need to do in this situation. They're still going to ask for your approval. It's no different with the DAO. Whenever we do something with the treasury that's going to be, even if it is something routine like this, it's still important for you guys to be aware of it and be able to vote on it. So,
Yeah.
um,
But I hope that kind of clears things up. If it doesn't, please feel free to ask right now. We have a little bit of time to spend on here and kind of answer those questions,
for sure.
clear anything up.
And we are recording this, so like you guys can go back and look at this as needed, and things like that. But yeah, any questions that you guys have, this is a good opportunity to go ahead and get them out there.
Yeah, as far as proposals and governance go. But also, while we're all on here right now, like, if you're not super familiar with Polygon Scan, you should definitely check it out. You should look up WLD on there and just kind of click around, get a feel for it. And then if you go to contract, then you can see everything in there.
Mhm.
You can see that there's 1.9 billion WLD tokens, and also kind of track these things as they do happen. But also, since we do have this proposal and voting concept, you know, anybody can go onto the snapshot page and create proposals themselves. And if you go on here, you can suggest any kind of action that the DAO can take. So, like, for example, if one of you comes across some kind of influencer or marketer or whatever, and we have funds in the treasury, you can basically say, hey, this guy, he can make a video about us for, like, I don't know, $50, just as an example. And I think it would be cool if we did this. And then you can throw that up on here and create a proposal for that. And then if everybody approves it, or it gets enough votes to pass, then that means those funds can be taken out of the treasury to be put towards doing that little video or anything like that. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, anybody, like, if you have any ideas, anything that you think the DAO should do, you can create a proposal for it on Snapshot.
Right.
But yeah, so do you guys have any questions, feedback, anything?
Maybe I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
All right. I've been following on the chat for quite a while, and I see constantly coming the same questions coming up there about wLITI and wLD. So I don't think that a lot of people actually understand how this really works. I don't think it's about the vote. I think it's the functionality of the wLITI and the wLD. I don't think that most people understand that, or a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, that's kind of what we started to realize too, is that it might be a little bit unclear to how a DAO functions. I might be able to.
Well, yeah. Specifically,
Yeah.
whenever it comes to the conjunction between wLITI and LITI, it can be a little bit confusing at first. But you know, the simplest terms that we try to explain it in, and we'll continue to try to explain it in, is you know, LITI is the equity token in LITI Capital, right? Meaning that if you want to receive any dividends or any kind of profit from LITI, you have to have LITI token. wLITI is the wrapped, openly traded on the market partner to the LITI token. And those two are pegged by contract to each other. wLITI by itself is nothing more than a market. It is nothing more than a token that's traded openly on the market. LITI token, LITI token is the one that holds all of the voting power, all of the distribution rights, all of those different things. And so as we get further along in the process of getting closer to cases finishing up and things like that, all of the wLITI has to be converted to LITI for us to actually, you know, utilize our rights as a DAO and govern, you know, our responsibilities within LITI Capital.
Sorry, probably I didn't say that right, because what I meant was that it's the function between wLD and wLITI. That's where the confusion is. It's not between wLITI and LITI. That's
yeah. So that's why I was if you guys can see my screen, why I was trying to find a simple diagram of like how.
I think the explanation what you give early on, I think this is quite good. Basically, where you say, okay, you have we as a DAO, we have a wallet, let me say, and we have like a treasury, and we have all the wLITIs in there, which are the cent pieces, and now we have to turn them into dollar notes.
Yeah,
right.
I think that explanation is quite good. It's just somehow I think we need to make that we need to visualize that so that other people can understand it as well, because I think they're still confused on that.
Yeah, because a lot of the people that joined wLD, we airdropped an NFT early on, and that was a lot of people's first NFT. So I think a lot of people in general who are with us, or at least some of them, are a little bit newer to crypto. So I think there definitely is a little bit of a disconnect between, you know, we are a token, but with DAOs specifically, DAOs usually have this thing called a treasury, and all a treasury is this vault or address wallet, whatever you want to call it, just this big safe that holds different tokens or assets or anything like that. And the only way for the treasury to do things with the assets that it holds is through some kind of governance. And the governance model we use is through proposals and voting. But yeah, we can go through and try to find, I think we'll try to find an article. Hold on.
Well, so, and out of curiosity, you know, we're open to ideas whenever it comes to trying to get this information conveyed to the community. As you can see, we're going ahead and redoing some of our older infographics and pictures and things like that to kind of give a more clear understanding of how things work. But if you have any ideas as far as how we might be able to more effectively do that, then we're definitely open to it. One of the things that we've been kind of consistently working on and is getting things translated over to German, just to kind of help with the language barrier. Speaking of which, big thank you to Hilo for helping with that. It's been tremendously helpful. But yeah, we are open to ideas as far as how we can communicate these things to people who might not be getting it initially more accurately. So
yeah, so one of the things after this we can probably do is, you know, find a couple of these articles on how DAOs kind of work that give some good explanations on what a treasury is, how a treasury functions. Because with us, the connection between WLD and wLITI or LITI tokens is that the wLITI or the LITI tokens are held in WLD's treasury, which that's why you can go to WLD's contract on Polygon Scan. So if you look up WLD, go there once again. But that's why you're able to see those tokens in the contract, is because, and that's the connection, is because WLD right here is holding those itself.
A metaphor that might make it a little easier for people to understand is you can kind of think of it like WLD is a business, right? And it holds assets that it uses for making money, like let's say a dump truck. Well, in this case, wLITI or LITI token would be the dump truck. That's where we go and we take it out in the field. We go make our money. That's kind of the same kind of relation, right? Where these assets go and make the DAO money, and then as holders of the DAO token, WLD, that's how you guys make profit. So it's kind of like in a traditional marketing like in a traditional market, we would be kind of assuming the role of what would be like a venture capitalist firm, right? Where we hold a bunch of different assets from a bunch of different companies and products and licenses and all of these different things. And those all accumulate to bring value to the table. And as those things accumulate to bring value to the table, that's how we make profit, and therefore, everybody makes profit. It's, the same way that shareholders make profit off of stocks.
Yeah. So if you can see my screen, I'm trying to do this with my mouse, but just to kind of represent that, it can be any kind of token or anything like that can be held in the treasury, right? So I'm trying to spell out NFTs right now, but it's a little small and not working, right? So, but yeah, so we have LITI tokens right there. That's a very bad arrow that I tried to draw. We also have WLD tokens itself right here, because there was a proposal a while back to do buybacks of WLD. So WLD's treasury also has WLD tokens in it. It has LITI tokens in it. It can hold USDC, ETH, NFTs, anything. But it's all within WLD's treasury, which is owned and managed by WLD holders,
by you guys,
through the DAO,
right?
Through what the DAO is.
Well, and another asset that people might not initially think about, but is an important asset, is like the additional case ownership. That in and of itself is an asset. That's a contract on an IPFS that is 1% ownership in that major case, and so that's additional funding that WLD exclusively has access to, that LITI holders would not have access to. Ideally, those kinds of funds, there has to be some kind of operating funds for the treasury. But as far as distributions and stuff go, when proposals are passed for any of these things to be either liquidated or compounded or expanded on, that's where these kinds of proposals come into play. And so, that ultimately, that's what's going to happen over time, is we're going to continue to build these assets, expand the portfolio, and continue to bring in different types of assets that are going to continue to grow the revenue of the DAO as a whole, right? A good example is like with the Launchpad. Whenever we have tokens launch on that Launchpad that we find to be advantageous or something like that, we can go and purchase some of those tokens the same way that we would any other asset, and potentially build off of those kinds of things as well. So like, Coal Phoenix, for instance, whenever they go and launch, there's going to probably be a portion of those tokens, a portion of those fees that gets paid in their token, right? Which means that the DAO would own a portion of their tokens, and that revenue would come into the treasury. And then you guys, the community as a whole, gets to decide what happens to those things. whether those get allocated for marketing or for, maintaining infrastructure or for, distribution. That's the power that you guys have in the scenario. And that's where WLD is related to all of these different things. It's not just related to wLITI or LITI. It's related to all of the assets that the DAO holds. It's the key to the vault.
Yeah. So hopefully that kind of makes a little bit more sense, but we'll also, we'll try to find some diagrams that kind of explain how DAOs work in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully that'll help make a little bit more sense.
For sure.
Yeah, I think the initial problem was when we had the initial sales on that with Infinity, is that if you remember that time the WLD was basically exchangeable to wLITI. It basically was the same thing in the end. I think that originally brought the whole confusion in there.
Yeah, because for every one WLD. Okay,
yeah,
I
don't
give
worry
up.
about that. But basically, at the beginning, that was the case where you were able to convert wLITI into WLD, and that's how we minted WLD. Originally, the idea was to continue to have wLITI and WLD pegged 1-to-1 during that conversion time, and then eventually depeg. So over time, that's what we saw happen. And, that's where we saw a little bit of, it was relatively unforeseen, but, something that
The
we were able to
arbitrage.
account for was arbitrage. We had, nefarious individuals that were going and trading wLITI. As its price dropped, they would buy wLITI and then convert it to WLD and then sell it. And so they were essentially like dropping our price. And so as a way to, retain everybody's assets and make sure that the value that you guys put into the DAO stays there, that's whenever we went ahead and depegged from that, which, eliminated that mechanic. So originally when we did go and talk about these things, that was part of how the DAO worked, was you were supposed to be able to interchange these things and use it more like a utility, specifically with wLITI. Over time, though, that did change, and wLITI became one of the assets the DAO holds, which was
so real quick. So if you go on Polygon Scan and you look under total supply, the only way that WLD could be created is by depositing one wLITI into the DAO, and that's how WLD got started. So because of that, for every one WLD, there's at least one wLITI that exists in the DAO's treasury. So that's why if you go in here, there's one wLITI for every one WLD, because that same amount sits in WLD's treasury.
right.
Which, depending on what we do in the next month, 2 months, however long, we might be able to go and pick up more of this wLITI, which can be done through a proposal to basically allocate some more USDC or anything else to go pick up more wLITI. So then at that point, for every one WLD, there's more than one wLITI sitting in the treasury.
Instead of having a 1-to-1 ratio, it could be like a 1.1 or 1.2 to 1 ratio. And, we have that, like, and when I say we, I'm talking about us as community members. I'm including you guys in this. We have that ability to go and do those things as the treasury ends up having more funding and more assets it can work with. Obviously, that big case at the end of the year is going to be a big thing in regards to giving us a lot of opportunities to diversify and expand the DAO as a whole. But in the meantime, we are bringing in revenue from other sources as well. But yeah, ultimately, whenever it comes to doing buybacks or purchasing additional assets like more wLITI, that's still going to be on the table. And even with LITI Capital going and making more of a focus towards LITI token itself and less with wLITI, that wLITI is still going to be there in existence and is still going to be something that we can go in and purchase. That's a new question.
Oh, what was that?
Michael asked,
When is the first pre-sale on the Launchpad planned?
oh, cool.
So this was actually going to be
We're getting
yeah,
sneak peek.
this was actually going to be announced later tonight, US time, that the first one is starting next Friday. So Friday the 29th is when the first one is going to be. And we've kind of talked about it a little bit, the Coal Phoenix guys, if you guys remember. And there was some delays with that, but they're going to be doing it on the 29th.
Right.
They're doing the launch on the 29th.
Correct.
Yeah. So they're gonna start their sales and stuff on the 29th.
And I don't know, do we have it posted yet? Are we able to post it regarding their audit?
Yeah, we'll include all of that in our announcement tonight.
My point is that they've gone through, you know, our entire process of getting ready to launch, and like whenever we go through that launch with them, it's going to be a very interesting scenario. I'm excited about it. But yeah, they will be our first official launch on the Launchpad.
And then because of that, you know, the outcome of that is now the trying to find the. So because of that, you know, we'll end up having their tokens, which their symbol is COAX.
Coax.
Yeah. So that'll be added into the treasury. And then we'll announce that and talk about all that later and announce it later tonight. But you brought up the question, so here we are. So the next one was, how will the insurance work? So the insurance piece.
That's a really complex question.
Yeah, it's not necessarily complex. It's one of those things that are. So somebody else on the team helps us with that and is kind of the one who's the expert with the insurance pieces. So he's writing up something that we're going to put into our white paper and everywhere else that kind of explains that. But basically, to be able to opt into insurance and do that program, you have to go through the Wolf certification, and then you also have to have a low risk score, because if it's high risk, then it's like, obviously insuring something that's high risk isn't a good idea.
Right. On top of that, like the certificate itself is also an insured process. So like the insurance is there to basically go and say that, you know, all of the traditional industry standards that are reasonable to implement in crypto are being followed, and because of that, they qualify for traditional, you know, securities like insurance to protect their users and themselves in case of unforeseen circumstances. So there's a lot of different things that can mean, and a lot of different ways that gets, you know, interpreted depending on the particular project and scenario around it.
Yeah, which we can have a call sometime soon that kind of where we can go through all the insurance stuff and explain all that and do a little bit more in depth, because so far it's kind of been it's there, but it hasn't been talked about very much. And we can, with the other guys, we can kind of
get a little bit more specific with things.
Yeah, and do a call on it, and they're working on writing stuff around it.
Right. So Michael asked, where can we find which tokens already have Wolf certificate? So if you go to the website, you can actually see underneath the portfolio or resources. It doesn't matter. Top right, that's the one that's covered by your chat.
Oh, yeah, it's covered by the Zoom chat. I was like, where did it go?
So as you can see, we've got our sample reports on here. We've also got the Coal Phoenix report, and any additional other audits that are either currently pending or will be going through in the future will end up on this page as well. And those reports will be visible right there. You'll be able to see their score. Something that's important to point out is you'll notice that the sample reports have a score of 100 versus a score of or out of 100 versus a score of out of 70 with Cold Phoenix. Whenever we go to do these reports and the due diligence, it's based off of the qualifying parameters, right? So some things in some things might not necessarily be applicable to every single project, and those things get excluded so that way it doesn't negatively affect the score of the token unfairly, right? So we want this to accurately reflect the risk of purchase more so than the idea of just like, oh, this is a score out of 100. So you will see the total score number change from time to time depending on the context of the audit. But the important thing is how much they've scored out of that, whether or not it's a high, medium, or low risk situation.
Yeah, which also it's something that's kind of evolving, right? So this is the number out of a number. Another number is how it's done right now, but we're kind of thinking about different ways to structure how to do a score because
to make it more clear.
Yeah, because it's we may make it a little bit more intuitive.
Mm-hmm. But you can see here, like, do key individuals have a history of developing successful projects on the market? And this is the sample report for Shiba Inu. We can see there that one's not applicable, so it doesn't necessarily reflect on the score of the token as a whole. But we can see here, some of the things that they have scored yes and no on, and we can see how that directly affects their risk assessment, right? So in this case, Shiba Inu has a moderate risk. It's a relatively high risk project, which, if you look at Shiba Inu as a token and its concept, that kind of makes sense, right? It's a meme token. And so you would kind of expect it to get a relatively low score. But this is kind of what that report goes over. And so whenever we do go through these reports and we do get them, we do get company or organizations and projects like Cold Phoenix audited, it's a very thorough process compared to the simple smart contract reports that you would get with other auditing services. And that's why we're able to go and do things like insure these people over time.
Mm-hmm. Which is also a tricky thing whenever you dive so deep into people occasionally.
Yeah.
Because even if a project is clean, whatever, it's you have your privacy looked at pretty heavily.
You still can't just go around doxing people. Like,
yeah, it's not a. So it's an interesting process.
It's definitely, yeah, for sure. I think Michael might have had another question. Does anybody else have any questions that we might be able to answer? Anything that's on your mind?
No, just an idea maybe. What do you think about the scoring if you keep it in the percentage rather than in the points? These points maybe can be there, but they should be maybe in the background.
Yeah.
And use a percentage.
Good point. Very good point.
Percentage would probably be a really good way to go about that then.
Whenever everybody's always talking in these small groups, we only think about what all of us think about, right? Mm-hmm. So if we show other people something so simple like that, then we're like, okay, like that should have been obvious.
Absolutely.
Good point. Yeah, we could do percentages. That would solve that whole thing.
Right, which ties exactly into what Michael asked, why is it that they got a score of 62 out of 70 instead of 62 out of 100? It's because certain categories are applicable and not applicable. And so changing that to a percentage would definitely make it a lot more reasonable for people to understand what we're trying to say there.
Yeah, good point. We'll do that.
Yeah, expect to see that fairly quickly.
Yeah. Well, and so that's another thing about all this is it's relatively new, right? So we're always evolving and trying to think about things and do different things to add to everything that we're doing. But just to loop back to the whole wLITI thing, because they are going to be turned from wLITI to LITI tokens, that means that the withdrawals for wLITI wouldn't be there
Yes.
because it's going from wLITI to LITI. So that's still open now on our dApps part. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so what he's saying there is whenever we went and depegged from wLITI, we left withdrawals from the DAO open. So you couldn't deposit any more wLITI into the DAO to mint more tokens, but you could still withdraw them if you didn't want to be part of this process. The reason why we did that was because we had to kind of make a very quick decision on depegging, right? And we wanted to make sure that if anybody didn't want to be along for that ride, they had the opportunity to go ahead and pull their wLITI out. Now, obviously,
but just a note, this doesn't affect the total supply or anything like that. So basically, what's happening is that there's wLITI set aside for this.
Mm-hmm.
So the supply and then also the amount that's held in here, that doesn't change.
Right.
We basically just have there's wLITI set aside from somebody who basically they have wLITI that they're willing to trade for wLITI.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how we were able to keep this open without affecting the total supply, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But at this point, this tool is no longer going to be relevant after after this proposal assumingly passes, given that the DAO will no longer be holding any wLITI, at least not in the immediate sense, and so this tool will probably go ahead and get disabled and no longer be relevant
in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
But so that being said, like if for whatever reason you were wanting wLITI directly, then like this is here to do that if you wanted to. You just can't convert it back into wLITI.
Yeah, which is basically, that is the only drawback. That's the only, let me say, the negative impact on it, that you wouldn't be able to use that tool anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Apart from that, there's nothing else. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing that you wouldn't be able to do that, but also there's but even if you didn't, then it's still 1-to-1 here, so it doesn't.
Yeah, it ultimately it's just another part of the evolution as we evolve. We have to shed some things that are no longer relevant, and that's going to be one of them.
That's why we wanted to hop on here too, is to explain all of these things to make sure everybody fully understands what everything means and what's going on.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, it's still
it's
equivalent of 1-to-1 here, and then we still have, there's still liquidity for wLITI on QuickSwap and stuff. Nothing really changes in that sense.
Right. Whenever I saw this proposal go across the snapshot, I actually got very, very excited because it really is that next step in the process of getting going down the line of continuing to finish up things with this case and some of the other cases that LITI's got moving forward.
Yeah, because right now we're holding wLITI, which you don't get anything from it, right? But whenever we move into LITI and we're kind of prepping for these things, it's exciting. And then most of you have been around since the beginning of wLITI, but before wLITI there was LITI Capital, and LITI Capital started maybe 8 months before the DAO launch.
Right.
And all of us have been here, at least like me, Devin, and Daniel have been here since the beginning of LITI Capital. So it's been a long ride, but some of these things are getting close to being finished up. And then if you guys saw the announcement that I was talking about earlier from one of the guys involved in one of the cases where he explained the status of it, it's personally exciting for us because the whole thing started out from, in order to get wLITI, you have to deposit your wLITI. So all of us were wLITI holders at the time. So we've all put in our own money, cash to
Right.
get into this. So it's an exciting time for us as
Yeah.
well to see those things.
That's definitely one thing about it is like all of us founders are holders just like everybody else. So we don't get anything special out of that really, outright. And so like
No.
it's one of those things where you know, we're really excited to see the process moving and finally actually start to see this thing evolve into what it really is supposed to become. You know, one of the important things, like you said, right, is that, you know, LITI Capital was around 8 months before the DAO. All of this is still relatively new. We're moving as quickly as we possibly can, and you know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think that we're doing a pretty good job of moving forward as quickly as we can. But you know, there are little things that we definitely would like to see feedback on that the community can definitely help with, like suggestions regarding the percentages instead of a score for the audits and those kinds of things.
We love feedback.
Yeah, anything that we can get help with from the community in regards to like making sure things look clean and professional, ideas in regards to how, you know, how you guys want to go about marketing or you know, partnerships that make sense that we might be able to look into. Those things are all there, that, and we all, you know, actively look for those kinds of things. So anytime you have any suggestions, I strongly suggest going ahead and throwing it out there somewhere. One of us is definitely going to see it in one way or another.
I mean, maybe just on that side, it's if basically anything you bring out new, for example, those certificates and all that, just send something out in a draft form to the community and basically ask for feedback. You will definitely get a feedback from that one then.
Yeah.
So you put it out there, and then yeah, people come back there.
Yeah, and then so in the past we've hosted a lot of Twitter Spaces, but the turnout, like we have regular people who hop on them, everybody hops on, but it seems like a lot of people in our community like Zoom. So maybe we should do more of these talks on Zoom because it seems like more people join Zoom.
Absolutely.
Or like kind of.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because we do Zoom anyway, so most people nowadays do Zoom. So it's
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So we that's noted.
For sure. Well, unless you guys have any other questions, I think we'll probably go ahead and wrap this up. There's a couple other things that we kind of need to get done today, right? So yeah, let's we'll go ahead and do one last round of questions, and then we're probably going to call it for today.
Sort of make a little bit more sense for everybody. Clear some things up.
Well, and I know that Jack and Sammy are watching, and this is getting recorded. So expect to see some of this, you know, recording go and get posted places and that kind of thing. So you'll definitely get an opportunity to see more of this and review it.
Okay, all good.
Awesome. Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and you know, letting us rant and rave a little bit for a little while on this. You know,
and that's the thing too. We love to talk about this stuff. We're full transparent or whatever. Like anybody who wants to talk about it, we're
big old DAO nerds.
Yeah, we're always more than happy to talk about this stuff. So cool. Well, everybody have a good day, evening, whatever time of day it is where you are. And we'll see you guys on Telegram and Discord.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
All right, then. Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys for your time. Have a nice day. And I hope the project will be successful and everything. I'm so excited.
Cool.
Cool. All right. See you guys.
Cool. Peace.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.